Hi, I'm back, guys. Crystal Wright, and welcome to the Pay Safe podcast. Today's guest is a Jacksonville restaurant owner named David Joudi. He owns, Riverside Liquors, the restaurant at Riverside, and the Royal Palm. I got it all right. So, David, thank you. Thanks
Very
for
good.
joining us.
My pleasure.
And tell me a little bit about, we were talking earlier, but, I always wonder, how do people become restaurant owners? Tell me about your path. How did that happen?
It's a journey. Everybody enjoys a good restaurant and a good bar, and it's all about service. So that's one of the reasons also I chose PaySafe was because of the service. So I've been in the service industry ever since I got out of high school.
Okay,
I started in the service industry as a bartender to pay my way through school.
Okay.
I had too much fun. And so I stayed a bartender and stopped going to school.
Now, did you want to become a lawyer too, you were telling me?
I wanted to be an attorney.
Okay.
Yes, because I've got family that are attorneys. They're very successful attorneys in Miami and Detroit and LA. And so I wanted to be like them. But like I said, I had too much fun. And so I remained a bartender for quite some time. I was traveling the country tending bar.
Okay, that's cool.
Going city to city for a little while here, a little while there, save a little money, go to the next place. And then I came back to Jacksonville for the holidays. And I was working at what was then Ruby Tuesdays, was a big chain, fast-growing chain in the late 70s, early 80s. And so I was working for them, and I got into their management program. And I met my wife, or my future wife, and we got married.
Okay.
And I was working at Ruby Tuesdays, and a customer came in and said, David, I'm moving to Atlanta. You want my job? I said, well, what do you do? And he said, well, I sell wine and liquor wholesale. I said, I can do that.
Yeah, that sounds like a fun job.
Yeah, so I did that for 20 years. But having the background I had, it was a natural for me to call on restaurants.
Okay.
So I did, and I was very successful, in the wholesale industry. And so I did that for about, 15, 20 years. And then one of my favorite customers, Bob Marandino, at Riverside Liquors.
All right.
The store was put up for sale. And I said, I've always wanted that store. I talked to my wife, and she said no. And I couldn't buy it on my own anyway because I worked for a wholesaler.
Okay.
And
this is in Jacksonville at this point.
This was in
right?
Jacksonville at that
Jacksonville,
point.
Florida, where we are. I forgot to tell everybody we are in Jacksonville, Florida. This is where David's little, I would say, big restaurant empire is.
Well, it's not a big restaurant. It's enough to feed multiple families.
That's good.
And that's a good thing because that's what we all should live for, is to feed our families.
Yeah.
Whether it's your immediate family or if it's your restaurant family, your business family.
So how you ended up buying Riverside Liquors first, right?
Bought Riverside Liquors in 2001. We opened, and it was a liquor store, and we turned it into a liquor store and a bar. But originally, Riverside Liquors was founded in 1966.
Okay.
In a 2,500 square foot, space, between, Robert Marandino, Bobby Marandino, and his father, Cass.
Okay.
So now I'm going to pass it on to my son.
Oh, that's cool. You're keeping the father-son legacy.
Exactly. Go ahead.
Sorry, but and your son, how does he like the restaurant business?
He loves it.
Kind of followed in your
Well,
shoes?
the restaurant business, not so much. The retail business, he loves.
Okay.
Restaurant business is a different animal.
Yeah.
So you hire the right people.
Yeah.
And that's why I also opened Royal Palm. I hired the right people, that wanted their own. I make it their own because they always get a piece of the action. And that's the way, if you ever look at any successful restaurant business, look at Longhorn, look at Outback, look at any successful chain, and they will have proprietor in a man's or woman's name on the top of the door, a person's name over the door, proprietor, so-and-so. And that's because they own a piece of the business.
Yeah, that's cool. You make everybody get some shared interest in the success of
Correct.
the business. Now, you talk about picking the right partner, right? You talked about that, how, it's important to have the right people, I guess, and filling a need in the community. When it came to you looking for a payments partner to, your merchant customer of ours of PaySafe, What was it about PaySafe that you said, what were you looking for in the right payments partner, that right partner to help you on the back end of the side, right? The money movement side, I should say.
Well, the main thing about, any business really, in the restaurant business especially, is you have to watch your costs.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the service industry, you want someone to give you service.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking for service and cost savings. My previous processor didn't treat me well towards the end of our contract. And so I started looking around, and I asked some people, and one of them was a friend of mine, and he recommended PaySafe. And so I went with PaySafe. I called them. I called multiple. And PaySafe was the most personal. They were more willing to work with me on my fees, which are very important to any business, because that basically takes a piece of your profit right off the top.
That's right.
And in today's world, more and more people are paying, with electronic funds, debit, credit, Apple Pay, Google Pay.
Everything's digital.
They're even using their watch now. I've never thought in a million years.
So, speaking of payment trends, if you look back to when you first got in the business in 2001 to now, do people come in your store or restaurants and pay with their watch?
Yes.
Like you see them holding up the device to the...
They hold their watch up to the device and pay just like you tap your credit card. And, when I originally got into Riverside Liquors and even in the restaurant business, 90+% of your business was done in cash.
That's right.
We had some larger customers that wrote checks, but 90% of the business was cash and check. And today it's just the opposite.
Do you still accept checks and cash?
We do.
Wow, I'm proud of you, David.
We do.
You're like, equal opportunity payment.
Yes, please.
Acceptor.
Well, I mean, the best money is green money.
True. But it's funny you say checks, because checks really, I can't remember the last time I could go to even a grocery store and write a check. I think
don't want you to write a check.
No. For a variety of reasons.
Right.
But,
we take very few checks. We take checks from... We do a lot of business with nonprofit organizations. Yeah. We know their checks are good.
Yeah.
We do a lot of business with corporate clients. We know their checks are good. Those are the checks we take now. And customers that have been with us for a long time, that are about 80 or 90 years old, still prefer to write a check.
I'm not going to tell you how old my parents are, because my mother would kill me, but they still like writing checks at the grocery store.
They do like to write checks.
It's okay. They're good for it.
It holds up the line.
That's right. My dad likes writing the checks at the wine store. But it's interesting that you say, so you would say probably more than 90% of your payments are digital, some form of digital payment.
I would say right now, I just looked at it, actually it's 93%.
Oh, wow.
Are digital payments.
So when you think about that as a restaurant owner, what are your top concerns? When you think about payments and looking at a partner, what do you think it's something that, like, your concerns versus what the processor understands about the business? What would you, if there was one piece of information that you would give any processor that you're partnering with, what is something that's misunderstood by payment processors about the restaurant industry or small merchants?
Well, have an ability to be flexible. If you have a client or a prospective client that is doing X amount of dollars per year, and it's small, then you have, in order to keep your business healthy, you have to, charge a certain amount. And we do too. Mm-hmm. And we have to count that into our cost of doing business. We can't just let, a processor like, the sales tax man just take a piece off the top. We have to watch our pennies. So if you watch our pennies, we'll watch your pennies. We'll promote you. We won't ask our customer, would you like to pay cash for that? Yeah. We'll just let them swipe their cards.
I get it. Yeah, it's you look at it as a partnership.
Everything in business is a partnership. And if you don't look at it that way, it's a partnership with the people that sell things to me, like PaySafe sells me a service. And it's a partnership between me and my client.
Yeah.
My customer is my partner, because if I don't give them what they want, I'm not going to make money. If they don't spend money with me, they're going to spend it somewhere else. Yeah. So it's all business, as in anything, is about partnerships and relationships.
Yeah, and it's funny, we say that all the time at PaySafe. When we refer to our merchant customers, we talk about them as our partners, because we can't be successful without you, and we hope that we're partnering with you to help you equally be successful. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a great point. Now, tell me a little more about, I want to go back to something that really the roots of Riverside Liquors, the jazz club element here. I think it's very intriguing. So for listeners, viewers, listeners of the podcast, it made me want to come here and see what things were all about, the history of the place.
Well, the history of Riverside Liquors, from 1966 to 1985, Riverside Liquors had a very small upfront area that was mostly liquor, retail, and a little bit of wine. And in the back, in the larger part of the store, was a jazz lounge. And when artists would come into town, Woody Herman, Spyro Gyro, they would come in after their gig, and they would jam at Riverside Liquors. And we had a quartet that was very well known locally that would play almost every night, 3 to 5 nights a week. And back then, it was the jazz club. It was the speakeasy. It had a back door.
Love it.
Who's who from the business world and the government, would come in the back door
Slip it in.
and they would have themselves a great time listening to some great jazz, enjoying everybody's company as we did back then. Then in 1985, liquor liability insurance kind of went through the roof, and he made a determination to close the club and go full liquor, expand the wine selection, because he found out he couldn't get a decent bottle of wine in the city of Jacksonville.
Wow.
He and Bobby and his wife Jan moved into a house, not far from here actually, and she was making a chicken dinner, and he wanted a bottle of wine. He went out to look for one, and the best thing he could find was a French Chablis from B&G that was 2 years out of vintage date. So he said, well, I'm from D.C. I know the business. I know the wine business. So he started bringing in wine. He built a great wine business. He was known as the grandfather of wine for Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
In 2001, my wife bought the store for me.
That's pretty awesome. You lucked out, I'd say. You got a great, restaurant, great liquor store. And the history of Riverside Liquors, I mean, what's there not to like with that? Speaking of which, what's your favorite wine or spirit? What do you like to
under
indulge
every cork
in?
and under every cap is a new friend.
Anything special? Like if you had to have if you were on an island and you could only take one spirit or wine, what would it be?
That's the question people ask, and that's what I ask. If you're on an island, what be one type of wine or spirit would you want?
I know what champagne.
I'm okay with champagne.
True blue
but
champagne.
I would go with Riesling. And,
okay. All right.
And people that have been in the wine industry as long as I have understand that, because Riesling is probably the most versatile grape on the planet.
Yeah.
It can be sweet all the way to extra dry. They can make sparkling. They can make spirits. They can make anything out of Riesling. Any flavor profile can come out of Riesling.
All right.
Except for red, of course.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Who needs red wine on an island?
That's right. Yeah. I like it. Okay. The Riesling man. That's what I'm going to call you from now on.
Call me the Riesling man.
All right. Well, I end every podcast with an out of the blue question. Guests don't know what the question is before we start. They try to pry it out of me. I won't, I don't bend, don't break the rules. So, out of the blue question for you: if you could be a fictional character in a book, a movie, or a TV show, or anything, and you could be that character for a day, who would that be?
Mario. And I say Mario because Mario can keep going and going and going and going until he reaches his prize.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it, David. We're very much in the video gaming space. We process payments we are we offer, I should say, digital payment options for a lot of video gaming companies. So that I didn't even prompt you to say that. So,
No, you didn't.
you know,
I had no idea what I was going to say because I didn't know the question.
And we like to say at PaySafe that we we really bring experience to life. We are the payments behind the experiences, and you just
And my
you
7-year-old
really proved
granddaughter
that.
is a Mario nutcase.
I love it. So I don't know. Maybe one day we're going to wake up and we're going to find you've become Mario.
Okay.
Thanks,
I'd
David.
enjoy that. Thank you very much.
This was really great, and really appreciate you talking with us. And you know what I always say, guys? Tune in next time because you never know who you're going to see.